welcome back to Cooking with Countryside. My name is Melissa and today we're going to be making a summer squash sauce and we're going to pair it with ravioli. So it's perfect for a change up from your traditional marinara sauce. So what we're going to need from the market, you can use any kind of squash you want. I'm going to use an assortment of summer squash today, about 2 pounds of that. You're going to need an onion. My squash is rolling away already. Some fresh basil, garlic, and ravioli. Today I'm going to be using artichoke ravioli, but you could try it with any of the different flavors. And some things you'll need from home are olive oil, Parmesan cheese, salt, and pepper. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to get water boiling for your ravioli, just because that takes a little while. And then the next thing we're gonna do is we are going to chop our garlic and get that cooking in a pan with olive oil. So the recipe I'm using calls for 3 cloves of garlic. I'm just gonna use this one because it's pretty large. So depending on the size of your garlic and how strong you want the flavor to be, you can adjust that. But definitely I recommend using fresh garlic here instead of ground or powdered garlic because it's gonna just add that much more flavor to it. So once we get this peeled, I'm just going to dice it and add it to a hot pan with oil. And my hands are wet, so that's not helping me peel this. Okay, perfect. And so just dice this real small. You don't want to bite into this dish and have a huge chunk of garlic, or maybe you do. But anyway, just mince this real small. I'm actually gonna start heating up my pan. So you're gonna wanna use a pan a little bit on the larger side for this, just because we are gonna have quite a bit going into it. We're gonna cook our sauce in the skillet, and then we're gonna add the raviolis on top of that. So I'm using a larger size pan, if you can see that. And just adding a little bit of olive oil to that. And so that way, by the time I'm done chopping this garlic, it'll be nice and hot for me. And we're just going to cook it until the garlic gets brown. And if you don't cut everything ahead of time, it kind of all falls in place with the timing. So after we add the garlic, we're gonna start cutting the squash and the onion. And by the time we're done cutting the squash, the garlic will be browned. So it all kind of works out nicely. Okay, so now I have my garlic nice and small. I'm gonna just add it to the pan. Okay, so while that's beginning to cook, like I said, the next step, we're just gonna chop up our squash and our onion. Now, when you're chopping up the squash, I might actually use a food processor here, just because that's gonna make things go a little bit faster. They don't need to be super, super small, but you don't want huge chunks because what's gonna happen is we're gonna kind of cook this down and it's gonna get a little bit sticky. So if you want everything to go a little bit faster, the smaller pieces will work better. But also when you're eating it, if you don't want so much of a, like, not gritty texture, but if you want a smoother texture, you're gonna wanna make them a little bit bigger. So I will just show you kind of a few different sizes. And as these get cut, you can just add them right to the pan, right to the stove. And we'll find out whether this truly is faster or not. I'm not sure. So you can kind of see here, of course there's still some big chunks in this, but they aren't super small, but they're not too big either. Try to show that without everything falling off. So I'm just gonna repeat that process with the rest of the squash. And you also have the option here to peel the squash, but I think that's a little bit unnecessary because, like I said, it's gonna cook down anyway, so it's not like you're gonna have one part that's too much more tender than the other. And we're almost there. Okay, so now that all my squash is in, I just kind of mixed it around so everything was a little bit coated with that olive oil. And right now I have it on medium to high heat because we just want the squash to start to cook down and meld together. The next thing I'm going to do is dice an onion. We're going to use about half a cup of onion for this, so probably about half an onion, maybe a little bit more, depending on the size of your onion. I know I've seen some giant ones at the market. And again, these are also going to cook down. I'm sure you've all cooked with onions before, and they're gonna get translucent and break down a little bit and release their flavors to meld with the squash, which is gonna taste really nice. I got some flying away off my cutting board. So we're gonna use half a cup. Like I said, that'll probably be about half an onion. So there we go. So now we're just gonna let that cook for a while. You have your ravioli, and if you got it from the market, they will have instructions right on the package. So this just says, cook ravioli in boiling water from frozen for 6 to 8 minutes. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. So we had our boiling water that we started earlier. That's definitely ready by now. I'm just gonna plop these in there. So the squash has broken down. It started to stick and brown on the pan, so at that point I made sure I kept stirring it occasionally. I turned the heat down a little bit, but basically what's going to happen is at first a lot of the water content is going to boil away, and then you're going to be left with a more dense squash, and it's going to start to brown, and that's what we want. So at this point my raviolis are already cooked and my squash is pretty much broken down. And it's starting to brown, and it's definitely a lot softer and mushier, which is what we want. So I'm going to add the raviolis right to the pan. And then I'm going to add a little bit of that cooking liquid from the pasta to the pan too. We're going to stir it all together and get the squash to coat the raviolis. And I'm gonna bring you around for a sneak peek tour. This is kind of what it looks like right now. So you can see there's still big pieces of squash in here, but they're definitely soft. And the ravioli is just gonna cook for maybe 2 or 3 minutes to kind of absorb some of that squash flavor. And then we'll be back for the final step. So for the final touches, you're just gonna plate your ravioli, and hopefully you can see that real nice. And then we're going to take some of our fresh basil and just chop it up. I'll move this out of the way. It doesn't have to be super small. You can even leave the leaves whole if you'd like, but by chopping it up, then you can just sprinkle it on top, and it'll be more of a bite-sized piece, so you can get a little bit of basil in every bite. So I'm just gonna sprinkle that on top. And then we're also going to top this with Parmesan cheese. And this again is optional. I just think pasta and cheese go so nicely together. And you could also top it with any of your favorite shredded cheeses. I know there's a lot to choose from at the market, so definitely check that out. And that completes our ravioli with summer squash sauce. Thank you for watching, and if you're interested to see how you can get these ingredients from your local farmers, visit countrysidefoodandfarms.org. Enjoy!